Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andrew Ibarra, and in this video, we're going to be assigning a built-in policy definition to our Azure resources. I'll be trying to cover as many scenarios as I possibly can, such as assigning the definition to a management group or a subscription or resource group, as well as other scenarios that I'll put in the timestamp down below so that you can quickly jump to the part that's applicable for you. Likewise, I'm going to be showing two methods for doing this. The first one's going to be building the template with you step by step so that you understand the different properties and configurations. And the second method is just going to be using a built-in EPAC command to have it build the assignment template for you. So let's jump straight into it by building out a brand new file inside of our EPAC folder structure. In policy assignments, you want to create a new file. And for me, this one's going to be configure HTTPS. .jsonc, and this is going to be for storage accounts. I already have one kind of in my head of what I want to assign to my production management group. So let's start by looking at our enterprise policy as code website and define policy resources and policy assignment files. There's going to be a template that you can copy quickly depending on the scenario for you. There's two templates. One is for single scopes. It's a more simple template that you can use if you're only intending to take this set of or this definition and assign it to maybe one management group or one subscription. This would be the template I would recommend. And the second template would be for multiple scopes. So if you plan on deploying to production and to non-production, and especially if there are different effects of production to non-production, and you want it all in one template, the second one for multiple scopes would be your best bet for starting with. And for the sake of this video, I'm going to be going with the more complex template, just because if you can complete this one, then doing a single scope deployment yourself should be rather straightforward. So let's go ahead and copy the contents for the multiple scopes and paste it within the new file that we generated. And starting with line 2, we have the schema property, which references a file that's on our GitHub site. It just helps you give awareness if there's anything incorrect. So if I start misspelling something as far as properties goes, you'll see I get this warning here saying missing property policy ID. The reason it knows that is because of line 2, so it's typically best to keep that there. Then on line 3, we have the nodeName, which is an EPAC only reference for what it needs to do to take this definition and assign it to the different scopes. So there's really no wrong answer. The only thing I will say is that nodeName on line 3 compared to the nodeNames that are found in the children section should be unique and they shouldn't conflict in any way. So typically what I like to do is have the nodename up top be relevant to maybe the service that I'm trying to deploy to, or maybe the purpose. So for me, I'll put this one to storage. And then the nodename for my children, I like to put the environment I'm deploying to. So for example, this one would be production, but maybe for you, it might be non-production or dev. Again, there's really no wrong answer, and it's just something that EPAC needs to identify the different components and how to properly assign them. So moving on to line 4, we have defintionEntry, and what's currently there based on the template is policy set name. But because we're trying to assign a built-in policy definition, we actually want to change this to policy ID. And policy ID is going to tell this template and tell EPAC that we're not trying to do any custom deployments or policy sets. We're using a built-in policy ID, which we can grab from the Azure portal. So let's go find that one policy that I'm trying to deploy by going to the Azure portal, go to policy, and in definitions, I'm going to search for, I think it's configure secure transfer. See if that picks up. And there it is. So this is the built-in policy that I want to use. I'm going to click right into it. And every single built-in policy will always have this definition ID on this right-hand side. And this is the ID we need to copy over and paste it as the value inside of our assignment template. And now whenever the rest of this information is being generated, it's going to be using that built-in policy ID to create the parameters and everything else once you're filling it out. So going into the first child that we have entered here, this nodename is for production. And in the assignment section, this is the main details of the policy assignment once it's generated. On line 11, we have the name, which is essentially the ID of this assignment. it has to be at least within a 24 character limit. And I typically like to put this as something like the environment dash maybe the intention of the policy. So for me, it's prod-https. Whatever the case might be, most of the time you reference this whenever you're making exemptions or maybe some remediations. But for the most part, this is something that just needs to be unique and within 24 character limits. Then we go into the display name. And for me, I want to name this one EPAC-secure transfer. And I also want to put that for the description. I'm going to copy this over here and paste it. On line 15, we have the enforcement mode property, which for anybody that's not familiar with Azure policy, if you're deploying an enforcement policy, such as a deploy if not exist, or deny, or modify policy, any Azure policy that can physically alter an Azure resource, there is a way to set a catch-all, essentially, which is an enforcement mode property that says, do we want to allow these effects to continue to take place? If so, set that to default. But if you're being more cautious, where you first want to roll out those policies with the effects set to deny or set to modify, but you're not 100% sure that you wanted to be doing that action, the best step to take would be setting enforcement mode to do not enforce. This is essentially going to make the policy act as an audit policy, giving you some time to roll out the policy with the desired effects, let it audit, generate some compliance data, and then once you're ready, come back and change the enforcement mode from do not enforce to default. And just for the sake of the video, I'm going to keep it do not enforce just so that we can see that it's configurable through EPAC. Next, we get into the parameter section, and this is just going to be the default that's part of the template. It may be different for the policy we're using. The best way we can do this is check the Azure policy in the portal page and see what the parameters are for this particular policy. It looks like the only one that I can see in here is effect within the parameters section. Also, you can use the parameters tab here to see the name effect and the default value and allowed value. So for me, I'm going to keep effect, but you'll notice that the default value or the only option is modifier disabled. So I'm going to use modify as my value in my assignment template. All right, and then we get to the scope section on line 19, which is where we declare the PacSelectors. So we have to look at our global settings to see which PacSelectors were even available to us. And for me, I have two PacSelectors. I have one called production and one for non-production, and they align to the same tenant ID, but the management group that they're looking at is one is the production and the other one is non-production. And quickly, just to show that in the Azure portal, I have my two management groups inside of my tenant root group, one being non-production and the other one being production. And the ID here for production matches the one that's inside of my PacSelector for production, as well as the one for non-production matching the one that's inside of the tenant. So in the assignment file, we can either reference production or non-production for the scope that we want to assign it to. And so for this one in particular, since we're doing production, I want to set that PacSelector to production. And within production, the scope I want to assign it to is also that same management group. So we're going to copy this content. If you're trying to deploy it to a management group, it does need to be this full provider path, followed by the unique GUID or the ID that's for that management group. So this checks out, looks all good. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we're going to run the build deployment plan to generate the plan to essentially take this policy assignment and assign it to our Azure tenant. So we'll give it about 15 to 45 seconds for this to fully complete, and we'll look to see what the output is generated. All right, so it looks like it was able to successfully complete. We can see in the deployment plan output, we actually have two files this time, one being the policy plan to take that assignment resource and deploy it to our Azure tenant. And the second is our roles plan, because this particular policy actually requires a role being associated with that policy so that it can configure the HTTPS sending on my storage accounts. So we're going to just quickly check by scrolling up and seeing that we do have one new role assignment in the assignment summary, as well as the policy assignment in the assignment summary. And if we scroll up just a little bit more, we can see in the processing policy assignment section, it shows that new EPAC secure transfer policy assignment being generated at that scope that we gave it, as well as the new role that's being trying to be added at the same scope for, in this case, it's storage account contributor. So this looks good. We're going to go ahead and in this case, we have to run the next 2 steps to deploy the policy plan, which is going to take the policy template and assign that to our scope. And the second command that we need to run is actually give that policy assignment the permission to do that with the roles plan. So that's going to be deploy-roles plan. And quickly, let me hit production and resolving identity and fully complete successfully. So let's go ahead and check that inside of the Azure portal. Typically, it takes about 10 to 15 seconds for it to update. But first, we need to migrate to the production environment, my production management group, go to policy, and we'll see if this loads within the compliance section or within the assignment section. Both you'll be able to find the assignment that was deployed. And we can see here, there's a assignment that was generated, EPAC-secure transfer. And if we click into it, we should see a couple different things. One, modify is the correct effect that we gave it in the parameters. If we hit view assignment, we should see that this policy enforcement is do not enforce, which is what we set in the EPAC template. And last, if we go to manage identity that's here on this tab, we should see that it does have the storage account contributor associated with this policy. So at this point, it's fully managed through EPAC. If somebody did have permission to modify this policy, you could run the command again to generate the policy plan, see if any changes have taken place. And if so, then it's highly recommended to run the following commands again, just to ensure that it's put back to what you have inside of your assignment template. Now let's go ahead and cover some additional scenarios, such as what happens if we're trying to use this exact same set of configurations, meaning I want this same display name, the same parameters, everything, except I want it to be applicable to my non-production PacSelector, because I have 2 here. So the easiest way to do that is actually just to append within the scope section another PacSelector. So right now, just copy the contents for the for the production one and replace it with non-production. And also make sure you replace whatever scope within your non-production PacSelector you want. And for me, I want it to be the same as the non-production management group. So I'll replace that with this. And at this point, you now have this assignment template that will be used whenever you're running the build deployment plans or the deploy policy or deploy roles plans for that specific PacSelector. So if you want them to share the same enforcement mode, the same parameters, everything, this would be the simplest way that you can keep it minimal and now have it applicable to multiple PacSelectors. But what happens if you want to assign it to different scopes, such as I want it to go to production and non-production, but the non-production one, I don't want it to be modified. I want that one to actually be disabled, and I want it to have its own display name, just as an example. What's recommended at this point is to, instead of doing something like this, let's go ahead and delete this section. Duplicate the child in the children section and create a new section here and press paste. And here we can have the exact same reference to the same policy built in the same built-in policy ID that we were trying to deploy. But we have 2 sections within this assignment template. The first one being for, in this case, the production configurations and those properties that are unique to production. And now we have a second child, which still references that policy, but has its own unique details and configurations for the non-production environment. Okay, so I went ahead and filled out the rest of the information for my non-production child, giving it a unique node name, display name, and everything else that are relevant to my non-production environment. So now if I run the build deployment plan step again, it will prompt us to select a pack environment. This one will go ahead and select non-production, and we'll wait for this to successfully complete so that we can make sure that it is assigned to our non-production management group. All right, so we can see that this one was able to successfully complete with 2 files. Again, there's the policy plan for assigning this policy assignment to the new scope, as well as a roles plan Because this is a brand new Azure policy and a brand new scope with a brand new managed identity, it also needs the exact same permissions now delegated to that new managed identity for the policy that we're going to be deploying to non-production. And if we scroll up, there's going to be some other policies in this case that you might see because this is my first time deploying to non-production. But what I'm particularly looking forward is the policy assignment, the new one for non-production with the correct role. This looks good. Let's go ahead and deploy the policy plan with the correct pack selector set to non-production and enter. And likewise, once this completes, we're going to go ahead and deploy the roles plan as well. All right, so let's go ahead and check in the Azure portal. What I'm going to do is actually go to the non-production management group, go to policy, and we'll wait for this one to refresh. And typically it's about 10 seconds, maybe 15 for it to start showing. It looks like it was already able to be captured. So we see EPAC, non-prod, security transfer, currently there, not started. If you click into it, we should see the specific information that's part of this specific assignment, being that the policy enforcement for non-production is set to default, which is what we put, or what I put in the template, as well as the description being non-production as well. And just to show you that the other one is still intact and it's still picked up by EPAC. So if anybody makes changes to either, we should be able to see also here. If I go to the production one, we should see that the EPAC secure transfer policy is still there assigned. The other scenario, or the last scenario really that I want to cover, is let's say you have your production environment or your production pack selector that you want to assign this policy to. But what you'll notice is that it's currently set to go to the production management group, which aligns with my pack selector. And what I mean by that is this ID within production matches the deployment root scope for production, which if we go to management groups and go to my production, it's this, right? It is this management group. But what happens if you have additional management groups below it, or maybe you're looking to assign it to a subscription? At this point, you can still reference the same pack selector. You just have to declare whatever GUID or whatever scope you're trying to assign it to. So let's give two examples. Let's go with, let's say we want to assign it to US for this management group, which is in production. So it has to be within the pack selector. I'm going to copy the ID for US, the US management group, and replace it not in our global settings, but in the scope for the assignment file. And what we can actually do is deploy it as many times as you'd like within the scope section for that pack selector. So at this point, what you're seeing here on this screen is the top one is going to be for the production management group, and the bottom one is going to be for the US management group. And maybe it doesn't make the most sense in this case if you're trying to deploy the exact same properties and settings, but it may be applicable for the reason that you're using it. And let's also go ahead and give it one more scope for the subscription that's inside of this management group. I have a production subscription. What happens if I want to assign it purely to here? So I'll copy the ID for the subscription, and the path for subscriptions doesn't match the one for management groups. It's actually / subscriptions with an ID. So Copilot, fill in some of this information for me, but I'll go ahead and I make sure put the templates of how you can go ahead and fill out this information in the description below. So for management groups, it has to be the full provider path of what you're seeing here on the screen, followed by the GUID. And then for subscriptions, it's simply just / subscriptions / the ID of the subscription. And then for resource groups, it's similar, although it has resource groups in between it. And again, I'll go ahead and put it in the description down below so that you can easily copy it. And just to clarify, you don't need any of the parents above it, the parent management groups or scopes. You can purely still use the production pack selector and assign it directly to the subscription or resource group or management group below that you're trying to assign it to. So for now, let's go ahead and actually go with this configuration. This will be the last example I'll show. I'm going to save this template. I'm going to run the build deployment plan for production, and we're going to go ahead and see that it's going to remove the original one from the production scope and now reassign a brand new policy at the subscription that is within our production management group. And this was able to successfully complete. We can see that there is one removal for the role assignments as well as one removal for the policy assignments, because we did replace the original production management group assignment, and we're now creating a new assignment with new role assignments at that new production subscription. Let's go ahead and run the deploy policy plans as well as the deploy roles plan to make sure that we're giving the correct permissions to that policy assignment. Looks like that one was able to successfully complete, and now we need to run the roles plan. Production, enter. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and check this really quick inside of the subscription for production. Go to settings, go to policies. All right, and we can see that I was able to successfully get deployed at the new updated scope for the production subscription with the correct configurations that we gave it inside of the assignment template. Last, I want to show the built-in function that can easily export any built-in policy. So this is going to be an EPAC function. If you want to, let's go find a definition, the same one that we were using in the example, configure secure transfer. Let's say we want to go with this one for building an assignment file for us. Let EPAC do it. There's going to be a command which I'll paste in the description down below. It's going to be export-policy-to-EPAC. We're going to pass over a policy definition ID as the flag. So you can do it for policy sets, you can do it for ALZ policies, but in this particular case, because it's a built-in policy that we're trying to have this created for us, it's going to be -policy definition ID followed by the ID of the built-in definition. So same thing, copy this one, copy the definition ID that's for this policy, paste it here and hit enter. And once this successfully completes and generates the assignment file for you, it will put it in the output export policy assignments folder here. And the name of the file will be the unique GUID of the definition ID, just to make sure that it's unique and doesn't conflict with any other policy assignment templates. And at this point, it should be 90% complete and updated, referencing the correct built-in ID with the correct definition entry. It already gives you some pre-populated display names and descriptions. The only thing you need to do is just change whatever you want to personalize for your personal assignment, as well as update the PacSelector and the scope of what you want to assign this to. And once you're happy with the changes, simply just copy this over and paste it inside of your policy assignments folder and rerun the build deployment plans again to assign it to your Azure environment. With that being said, this is the end of the video. We're going to be focusing on deploying custom definitions, built-in policy sets, and custom policy sets. And in the meantime, if I did miss anything that you would like for me to cover, I can leave a response in any of the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Look forward to seeing you on the upcoming videos.